Good evening everyone. Continuing from the previous video where we left. In this video we will discuss about the Government of India Act 1935 and its features. Since we all know that the Government of India Act 1919 failed to satisfy the aspirations of the Indian people and nationalists, therefore it led Gandhiji to ask for a nationwide non-cooperation movement in 1920. The impact or the response of the movement was magical and miraculous as it spread all around the country. Every section of the society participated in this particular movement. The people realized that gaining India independence or Swaraj is going to make them independent, actually is going to help them actually. Therefore they came on huge numbers out of their houses and participated in this movement. Since there was no specific location to which this movement was limited, therefore it made very difficult for the Britishers to combat this particular movement, and therefore they appointed a statutory commission under section 84A of the Government of India Act 1919 to look upon the matter, to know what actually is in the Government of India Act 1990 or what actually is not there, which is causing such kind of disruptions. So the commission was appointed in 1927 and the commission submitted its report on 1930. The commission is popularly known as the Simon Commission. After this commission submitted its report, there happened series of round table conferences. The round table conferences is comprised of the Indian nationalists, the kings of the princely states in India, the British officials, the members of the crown or the officials of the crown. They all participated in these conferences. They discussed the report of the Simon Commission, and then after whatever the conclusions that were brought out of those conferences were written on a white paper, and that white paper was sent to the Joint Select Committee of the British Parliament. The Joint Select Committee of the British Parliament, after considering the recommendations that were written in the white paper, that were drafted in the white paper, actually came out with an act. That act is known as the Government of India Act 1935. After all those things, before examining the main features of the Government of India Act 1935, let's discuss about one very important thing of this particular act. That thing is about the term communal award. What is communal award? Since the Britishers tried to diversify or to divide India, they started to trying to divide India since from this act of 1909. They continued this thing in 1919, and further to continue this thing in 1935, Mr. Ramsay, who was the Prime Minister of the Britain at that point of time, actually gave the concept of communal award. According to him, there will be no further political advancement of the Indian people till the both major communities of India, that is the Hindus and the Muslims, come at a common consensus or conclusion. So what basically it did was it diversified or it widened the gap it widened the religious gap in between both the communities. And after that, what happened, they not only appointed separate constituencies for the Muslims or Hindus, but for Sikhs, Anglo-Indians, Buddhists, Jainis, Parsis, and that created a lot of disintegration in the Indian subcontinent, which the freedom fighters had to combat even after the independence. So now we will discuss this was what was the concept of communal award, and now we will discuss about the main features of the Government of India Act 1935. The first and the most important feature of Government of India Act 1935 was prescribing for the provincial autonomy and federation. Unlike the previous Government of India Acts, the Act of 1935 prescribed for the federation. That federation actually consisted of not only the provinces but also the princely states. But it actually left on the hands of the princely states to decide whether to join the federation or not. and therefore they never joined and the federation never formed. But although the federation was not formed, but the provinces were given much more autonomy, as unlike the Act of 1919, where there was delegation of power to make laws in certain spheres, in this particular act, because it prescribed for a federation, there was a transfer of power, not a delegation of power. This particular act prescribed for different spheres for both the province and the center to make laws, and therefore actually gave much more autonomy to the provinces. In this particular act also, now the governor general was not the main head of that particular state. The governor had to act on behalf of the crown, not the governor general, and the governor general had also to act on the consultation of the council of ministers. He could not act upon his own discretion other than in certain subjects. On certain subjects, the governor had to take decisions upon his own discretions with the help of the Governor General of India through the Secretary of State for India, although the provincial autonomy was given under the Act. In this way, the center retained its control over the provinces in this Act also, that is the Act of 1935. Now, moving to the second most important feature of the Government of India in 1935, that is introduction of diarchy at the center. Diarchy means dual government. We all know that the executive authority on behalf of the crown was to be exercised by the Governor General of India. His functions were basically divided into two broad categories. The category number one comprised of the subjects like military, external affairs, internal security, etc., on which he was required to act upon the advice of the councillors appointed by him, who were not responsible to the central legislature. And the second category comprised of those things in which the Governor General was required to act upon the advice of the Council of Ministers, who were responsible to the central legislature. But even with regard to all those subjects as well, if the Governor General thought that all those things which the Councils of Ministers are advising to him are encroaching upon his special responsibilities or in derogation with his special responsibilities, then he could act contrary to that as well. And with regard to the special responsibility, he was required to act in with the consultation of the Secretary of State for India. But even after the act prescribed for the appointment of councillors or council of ministers, they never came into existence till the independence of India in 1947. Now moving forward to the third most important feature of Government of India in 1935, that is the legislature. As we all know that the Indian legislature was bicameral after the Act of 1919, and now that bicameral legislature was introduced into the provinces as well. Now the 6 provinces were actually bicameral, consisting of legislative assemblies as well as of legislative councils. The power of the governor to veto any particular bill was extended to the crown as well. Now the power of the governor to promulgate ordinances was actually extended to make permanent legislations. That means he could make laws as well. Now the Governor General could also stop the discussions in the legislature and could also stop the proceedings of the legislature if he thought that it is in the derogation of his any of special responsibilities. Now it was also required to take the prior sanction of the Governor General before to introduce a bill in the legislature if the bill is in repugnance with any of the laws of the British Parliament or seeks the amendment of any of the laws that extends to India of the British Parliament and could be in derogation of the special responsibilities of the government, or seeks to amend the governor's power or the governor's act, then the prior sanction of the Governor General was required. Now moving forward to the last and one of the most important features of the Government of India Act 1935, that is the distribution of the legislative powers in between provinces and the central. As we all know that unlike the Act of 1919, the power was not delegated in this particular act, but actually it was distributed. There was provision for federal list, provincial list, and the concurrent list in this particular act. Upon the federal list, only the center had the right to make laws in which the province could not transgress. In the provincial list, the province had the power to make laws in which the center could not transgress. In concurrent list, the both had the power to make laws. Just like now we have union list, state list, and the concurrent list. If the laws in the concurrent list are made both by the center and the state, and any of the provision of that particular law of the province is in repugnance with the center, then till that repugnance the law made by the province is void. That means the law made by the center will run, which is like that now as well. So these are the most important features of the Government of India Act 1935. And now we have completed the Government of India Act 1935. In the next video, we will talk about Indian Independence Act 1947, and that will be the end of the series. We will be completing this series. If you like this series, then do subscribe to the channel, like this video, and press the bell icon. Thank you.